For more on Ten Hag, just getting comfortable, aren't we? We're going to cross to our chief reporter who's comfortably out there for us, Kaveh Solhekol in Munich. Good to see you. Huge developments. How much of a surprise is it that United are now backing Ten Hag to continue?
I think it's a pleasant surprise for Erik Ten Hag. He always knew it was touch and go whether he was going to keep his job at Old Trafford. He's been on holiday in Spain, waiting patiently for contact from United, waiting patiently for them to tell him what they want to do. And they did contact him and spoke to him and told him that the review was over, and they decided to stick with him. But I think the complication is that he's only got 1 year left on his contract. And when you're a manager of the stature of Erik Ten Hag, you need more security than that. For instance, this summer, if he had left United, he could have potentially gone and managed Ajax again, or he could have come here and managed Bayern Munich. And if he'd done that, he would have got the security of a 3 or 4 year contract. So I think the really interesting development is that United are now holding talks with him to extend his contract, because I don't think it's good enough for United just to have a review and say, well, look, we've explored all eventualities and you'll do for the time being. No, I think Erik Ten Hag deserves more than that. He needs to be backed fully, and that means giving him a contract, giving him the security of having a 3 or 4 year deal, and that will send out the message to the fans, to the wider football community, and also to the United squad that Erik Ten Hag is here to stay. He is the owner's man, and he's the one who calls the shots.
So, Kaveh, you're saying Erik Ten Hag there to stay, but several names were mentioned as potential replacements. Just how close was he to losing his job?
I think there's two ways of looking at this. If you look at it from United's perspective, you can say, look, the new minority owner, Jim Ratcliffe, Ineos, came in February. They've made a lot of changes behind the scenes, and they were looking at maybe replacing Erik Ten Hag. The season ended, 2.5 weeks ago. They decided to have a post-season review. They explored all eventualities. They did everything by the book. And after 2.5 weeks, they came to the decision that Erik Ten Hag was going to stay, and they were going to open talks with the representatives about a contract extension. That's one side of the story. The other side of the story, you could look at it and say, well, this is a pretty shabby way to treat somebody like Erik Ten Hag. He's the manager of your club, and he won the FA Cup at the end of the season against the backdrop of lots of reports that he was going to lose his job. And no sooner are the celebrations over after winning the FA Cup than United are contacting other managers. Maybe directly, maybe speaking to their representatives, maybe they're being contacted by the representatives of managers who are interested in the United job. But for instance, there were widespread reports in the UK and here last week that Thomas Tuchel, the former Bayern Munich and Chelsea manager, met Jim Ratcliffe in Monaco last Tuesday. We know there's been contact with, for instance, the representatives of Mauricio Pochettino. We don't know if that contact was instigated by people around Mauricio Pochettino or by Manchester United. But it's common knowledge that United have been exploring all eventualities. So the other side of looking at this is that they didn't find anyone who was better than Erik Ten Hag at the moment. Gareth Southgate, for instance, that's impossible because he's managing England at these Euros, and they've decided to stick with Erik Ten Hag for the time being until someone better comes along, which is why I make the point again that the most crucial development, apart from the fact that Erik Ten Hag is keeping his job, is the news that talks have started about extending his contract. If he really is United's man going forward, I think pretty soon we're going to need an announcement saying that Erik Ten Hag has signed a new, improved, long-term United deal.
Kaveh, what does Ten Hag need to do, I guess, to ensure his position remains secure?
I think the first thing he needs to do is improve United's league form. For a club the size of Manchester United, often being second is not good enough. Finishing outside the top 4 is not good enough. Finishing 8th, their lowest ever finish in the Premier League, is certainly not good enough. That has to improve. Conceding a Premier League record for them of 58 goals last season, that is not good enough. Losing 14 times in the league, that is not good enough. Conceding 444 shots last season in the league is not good enough. Only Luton and Sheffield United conceded more attempts on their goal. So the league form has to improve. The Champions League form has to improve, but they're not even in the Champions League next season. But they were woeful in the Champions League last season, finishing bottom of their group. That was a disastrous campaign. They're in the Europa League next season. Erik Ten Hag has done well in the Cups. He won the League Cup. He won the FA Cup 2.5 weeks ago. Brilliant performance against Manchester City. But we need to see more of those kinds of performances. The league form has to improve. I think what Erik Ten Hag would say in his defence, he would say, look what I have been dealing with behind the scenes. Look at all the injuries I've had to put up with. I think United had 45 different injuries last season. Look at the dysfunctionality behind the scenes at the club with all the different owners, with the Glazers, 1 minute thinking they're going to sell the club, the next minute changing their minds. He's had to deal with all that. I think going forward, if he gets this new deal, he will have no excuses, because Jim Ratcliffe will say, I'm now calling the shots, I'm running the football operation. You've got a new chief executive, you've got a new sporting director, you've got a new technical director, you've got a new chief executive as well. Everything is in place for you to be successful. No excuses. Obviously, they still need to work on their training ground and improve Old Trafford as well. But plans are in place to do all that as well. But let's just wait and see. Let's wait and see if Erik gets this new deal, because I think that is the most crucial thing. And also, Erik needs to improve performances. We saw glimpses of how good United can be under him last season, but especially in the Premier League, not enough at all. And 8th, he knows it himself, is unacceptable for United.
Kaveh, if he does get this new deal, do you think the decision will be welcomed by the fans and players?
You know what? I think the majority of United fans will welcome this news. I know outside the club, most people assumed that Erik Ten Hag was going to lose his job. But I think United fans, the fans who go to games home and away, follow the club, I think they see what Erik Ten Hag is trying to do. They know what is going on behind the scenes at the club. They have a connection with him. They like the way he conducts himself. They like the way he deals with the media. They like the way he deals with players who step out of line. So I think the majority of United supporters will welcome this decision. I also think a lot of the players at United will welcome this decision as well, because they want some certainty, they want some stability going forward. And you have to say, Ten Hag has done a very good job bringing through young players like Mainu, like Garnacho. That is something that he's been very good at, developing young players. But I think one player who will probably thinking this is the end of the road for me now that Erik is staying is Jadon Sancho, who obviously famously fell out with Erik Ten Hag last season. In January, he moved to Borussia Dortmund here in Germany on loan, did very well for them, helped them get to the final of the Champions League. But you would think now that Erik Ten Hag is staying, that would mean that Jadon Sancho is leaving, unless some kind of peace deal can be negotiated between the two of them. But there's no indication that that is going to happen yet. But who knows what could happen during the summer.